see, and you will hear me every week when I scream. That's my team. That's my team. That's my team. Yeah, and that's my team. That's my team. Like a talent scout, I've been checking out new blood, and they'll do good. They'll add a lot to our game. I'm a footy fan, outgained your man's pure skill, and my team will beat anyone that you name. That's my team. That's my team. That's my team. And I'm letting everyone know that's my team. That's my team. They say they're gonna try and make us pay. They say, but I say we're ready now, we're on our way to that final And another thing I've been wondering lately, am I crazy to believe in my team? No! I'm a footy fan, so you understand my scene. And seeing my team fulfill a premiership dream. Yes, that's my team. That's my team. That's my team. Yes, I want you to know that's my team. That's my team. Well, that's my team. I'm letting you know. That's my team. The grand final win for me in 2003. Yes. 'Cause that's my dream. Oh, that's my team. That's my team. That's my team. Yes, I want you to know that's my team. That's my team. Well, that's my team. Oh, that's my team. That's my team.
Alrighty guys, what is going on? It is Fantasy Fanatic time. Let me get this game screen up going. There we go, boo! And just like that, the studio curtains open and there I am presenting. It's the Fantasy Fanatic, aka SpotTheOzzie, aka that guy that gets the high scores in NRL Fantasy, coming at you for round number 22. After a good round 21, we came 2,259th in round 21, which puts us still at 758th overall out of 100,000 fantasy coaches as a total out there at the moment. That's pretty big. That's the first time I think all season we've actually seen a total of 100,000 fantasy coaches. Now that's probably a number of different things, like late people joining in or people joining late competitions, like if they're having a competition just for like round 21 to round 26 or whatever it may be, you might find people just create a team for that sake. But That's a pretty big number. I can't exactly remember what last season's number was, but I would have to think that's probably the most amount of fantasy coaches teams out there at the moment. And before I go any further, how's everyone been so far? I'm glad that song brought back some memories because it's actually one of my favorites. It's from Rugby League Live 2. It's also the original intro for Channel 9, I believe, some time ago. It was absolutely amazing. As you can see, the production value, thank you for shouting that out earlier with my layouts. Luke and Bound, I think that's your name. Sorry if I've stuffed that up a little bit there, but I'm a bit flimsy with the European names. But this is the Fantasy Fanatic round 22 we're rolling into, and I'm doing pretty well myself. I don't know about you guys, if it's been a good round or not, but I've had some quite big successes. The biggest thing for me this week... Hey Dreamers, how are you, man? Thanks for tuning in, buddy. The biggest thing for me this week is that Cameron King did play the full 80 minutes. He scored 38 points. Unfortunately, Cameron Smith's score was enough to bump him up that little bit. And Cameron Smith is now $573,000. He's going to continue to go up with a break-even of 55. I have, if I want to make that trade of Cameron King, which I've been planning for about 4 weeks now, $570,000, which means it cuts me out, literally, by $3,000. Had either of them scored, if Cameron Smith had scored 3 less fantasy points in that earlier week, or Cameron King had scored 3 more points earlier in that week, I would have been able to afford the difference, and that would have been my team. That would have been my 17 players set for the rest of the season. But before I go any further, there's something that I really want to talk about before we get more into the fantasy side of it this week. We will talk about the Broncos losing this week as well, Fletch. Thanks for pointing that out. But one of the big things this week was the blow-up between NRL Memes and Big Ant Studio, the guys who are doing Rugby League Live 3. One of the things that's kind of happened at the moment is that the Rugby League Live, no, not 3, number 4 had just recently got released, and they had sent a couple of copies to various Facebook groups and pages and individuals to do a preview or a review or like a feedback session on the game itself. Now, what seems to have happened from this is that the NRL Memes page has actually got a copy of the game. He posted that earlier. But not only did he post that, he actually posted his review out in the public. What it says here is exactly from their Facebook page. It still stands today. And I'll read it out loud for you guys watching at home right now. It says, "Do not buy. After being given an early copy of the game by the development team to review, it is my recommendation to you all to not purchase this game. From running into opposition players without being able to tackle them, those stupid intercepts that happen in every Rugby League Live game, including this one, frustrating countless forward passes, knock-ons and high tackles you have no control over, line breaks from kicks and kickoffs. The game is just like every previous Rugby League Live game. Shit. I cannot stress to you all enough how similar this game is to all the previous ones and how terrible the game still is. If you're like me and didn't enjoy the previous ones, do not purchase this game and help this company develop the game anymore. Either a new company needs to go and have a go at making this game, or no one at all." And further below that, he has actually posted, "Tag all your friends and let them know how shit house this game." Now, NRL Memes isn't a small page by any means. It has about 260,000 followers, which means their reach of getting a message out, whether it be positive or negative or neutral, has quite a big of effect on everyone out there. And of course, the biggest market for people to buy Rugby League Live for is of course NRL fans, which is the main page that it holds the fan base for. Now, interestingly enough, Big Ant actually released a statement to say we actually never gave him a game to review. And then further to this, it got a little bit worse because NRL Memes actually had posted a conversation with the names blanked out, so it can't be confirmed exactly who it's for, but it says here, his reply was, "So Big Ant Studios have come out and said that I wasn't provided a copy of Rugby League Live 4 to review. That's odd. I wonder who emailed me this code then. Just because your game is shit, I decided not to give the game a big nice biased 10 out of 10 and a good write-up so my audience buys your game. Doesn't mean all of a sudden you didn't send me one. I guess that video of the glitch I uploaded was fake. The photo I took of my TV downloading the game and the email were all faked. Your game is shit, get good idiots. Hashtag roasted. Hashtag EA games. Hashtag 2K games. Hashtag do not buy." And he's posted an actual screenshot of a quick conversation that's between him and supposedly the actual developers of the game. Now, here's the thing for me, right? I played Rugby League Live 3, which is the last edition of the game quite some time ago, and I actually thought it was a great game. Now, bear in mind is that you have a limited amount of things you can possibly do with a football game, like the playability or the replay value or the hours upon hours of actually going over and over and over on a single game probably isn't that fantastic in itself. It's not like an NFL game where you're going throughout a season and there's so many different variables. The Rugby League Live game only has so many different sets of plays that you can possibly achieve and so many different moves like tackling, kicking on the fifth, and so forth. It's a bit repetitive. It's not like it when you actually play the game yourself and there's a bit more of a dynamic to it. The biggest thing for me is, in Australia, from my experience in the gaming industry, there is not a lot in the development side. There's not a lot of in-house development at all, period. Name the biggest company in the Australian gaming industry. And I bet you no one could probably name that in the chat right now if they even tried. Having said that, there are other people who have said the game is actually fantastic, and I can actually see in the chat right now, there's a few people saying, actually, the game's pretty good. It's actually not that bad. It's good. I actually enjoy it. I like it. And for me, I actually really enjoyed the NRL game myself from last season. Now, I haven't got a copy myself because I'm a PC gamer, but when the Rugby League Live 4 game does come out, I'm definitely going to be buying a copy, and I'm definitely going to be playing it. I'm definitely going to be streaming it live for you guys, so you guys can interact and ask questions and review it with me as I play it, and that way I can kind of show you the ins and outs of the game. If you want to see more videos on that later when it gets released, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. I'd really appreciate it, and that way you can stay in tune with the videos that I do release on that game. But, here's the thing, right? NRL Memes has a lot of weight to throw around. He can pretty much destroy the game in its initial period, and a lot of people will consider their opinion over anyone else's because of the likes or the followers of that page. And a lot of people won't make up their own opinion about the game, and they won't even go and buy it. So it's pretty much a kick to the gut for Big Ant Studios in order to continue to facilitate a game like Rugby League Live 5 or 6 and so on down the track. No one else is going to try to make this game. EA Sports, as much as anyone else can say EA Sports would be a great game to actually jump on board, would be fantastic. That would be the best thing I've ever heard if EA Sports has actually jumped on and did it, or 2K Games, or whoever it is that people are pretty much suggesting that someone goes and does it. They're not going to do it. Rugby League Live is not an internationally recognised sport as much as what people want to think, or the NRL want to think. It's literally the UK, New Zealand to a degree, and Australia predominantly. It's not that big of a seller as like something like FIFA. We need Big Ant Studios to continue to develop these games, and I think the feedback should have been a little bit offline and why it should have been better. Now, NRL Memes actually posted one particular video in relation to his comments, and he's unfortunately taken that video away, but what it was a player running towards the Roosters and James Maloney following them and then missing the tackle, or not even trying to attempt to make the tackle, and then a try happening straight away. Here's 3 things about that. First of all, is James Maloney. The bloke is a turnstile anyway, so it's pretty accurate. Number 2, he could have been set on amateur mode. What I've heard from other people is that if you set it on different difficulties, it's almost as if it's impossible to break through the wall of defense. And number 3, it's James Maloney. We just covered that. Like, it's the same as number 1. James Maloney cannot tackle. He's got the highest missed tackles in 2017 for this season. So, let me just sum this up in kind of a little way. I don't know if it was the best way for NRL Memes to kind of jump out, and it got a bit of a raw reaction. A lot of people were on board with what he was saying, but then a few people individually actually went out of their way to message NRL Memes and say, how good is Rugby League Live 4, and kind of troll him into some way, because that's what the community does now. The gaming community, the NRL community, no one likes a troll as much as the next person, right? So anyway, this guy individually messages him on the side from a different NRL group. It's not myself. He comes back and says, it's shit like you, good game, want to see some gameplay. And then he said, you know, shut the F up, yada yada yada, etc, etc, etc. Now, this wasn't the only private message log that was actually posted out in public. There were several more that were posted afterwards. So individual people had been posting NRL memes. NRL memes had taken the bait and pretty much thrown the bait back in their face and turned it on fire. So here's the thing about that, right, is that the NRL memes, as much, I think J2K just said, I think the guy is just joking or trolling or having a bit of a joke. Here's the thing, right? He could be having a joke about it, but it doesn't appear that way by his interactions with the community and the fact that he's probably like a label front for this game. He can literally screw these guys around. But all I can say is be sure to go and do more reviews and watch more reviews before making a decision whether or not you're going to buy this game. And I'm sure there's going to be more about this as well. There's going to be a lot more that evolves out of this game. I had heard at some point that there was possibly a defamation claim on it because he's pretty much reached an audience of 260,000 people that's damaged their brand and reputation. So it's going to be interesting to see what develops out of that. And maybe we'll even touch base next week to see if anything does happen. On a side note, there were some back and forth between NRL memes and other pages about stealing memes and not getting credit for the memes that he was taking. But here's the thing. Once a meme gets posted, it becomes public, right? It's a public thing, and you can't really copyright a meme. Usually it's taking a picture of something and then adding a text at the top and bottom just to have a bit of a joke. If you're worried about the credit being stolen away from you as an author or a comedian or a critic, simply put your name at the bottom left-hand side of the photo every time you make a meme, and that way you'll always get the credit. And I think we might wrap up that little segment for now. I guess the next thing I wanted to talk about was how good were the Parramatta Eels this week. We thought Clint Gutherson was going to be out of the box, not that great for the Eels considering he wasn't going to be playing. But then Parramatta ended up stepping up and going absolutely ham. BLJL6 Montage just said, please don't confuse this NRL memes page with the one on Instagram either. The bloke on Instagram is awesome. He's a great guy. Look, I think at the end of the day, there's probably going to be a lot of different NRL memes pages, but the one I'm talking about in particular is just the one that you can see on screen with the icon. So if there's a different page or different pages for different social media outlets, let's not get the two confused. But let's, BL6 Montage says, what are you doing in the bunker, buddy? Well, as you can see, I'm actually in the bunker. Thanks for pointing that out. I'm in the studio right now. I can be pretty much anywhere. So I've got my green screen working because that was one of the things I mentioned to you guys last week was getting a green screen, and I can actually play that around a little bit, and that's what I've decided to put behind me for now is just a bit of a green screen. But the Parramatta Eels were an absolute fire. The first part of it, not so much. The Northerner, they looked terrible. They were down by 2 tries. I thought it was going to be a steamrolling game, but they ended up bouncing back. A lot of people the other week when I predicted them to make the top 8 still, completely choked. On another front, talking about choking, was the Dragons. The Dragons were horrible. The Dragons did not step up when they needed to step up. The worst thing they could have done was lose to the Knights, the one team that everyone must beat in order to make the finals. And then they go away throwing what should have been a simple win. Mary, the coach, ended up blaming the refs and ended up getting a 10k fine for blowing up over the media about it because the refs are kind of like Voldemort, as it's been previously described. You cannot talk about them or say anything negative about them. But with all that aside, let's get back into the fantasy wrap-up, guys. This was my team last week. If I can go to my rankings and have a bit of a quick sticky peek at my team rather than the team I've got now. McKenna's 59. Cameron King, 38. Nathan Brown, 68. Martin Tapau, 52. Vaughan, I said I was going to captain him last week, and the first comment I got was, you shouldn't do it because you're going to jeopardize your rank. And I just thought Vaughan against the Knights, against that particular forward pack and the amount of missed tackles they have, they were going to be sweet. I thought he was going to break through, and before the Sunday, before the Storm game, he actually had the highest score for the round, 78, and I looked good. I was in the top 500 ranks until the Storm had played, because I think a lot of people had actually captained Cameron Smith and hoping that he was going to play, even though there was a little bit ifs and ums about him. That's the thing about Melbourne. Never trust their media sources, because every time Bellamy says there's an injury, and it's for like 2, 3, 4 weeks, it could be 1 week. It could be next week. It could be tomorrow. They could be coming back next season. That's the problem with those teams, is that there's no transparency between what they're feeding the media and what's actually happening. I was expecting Smith not to play. In fact, I didn't want him to play so I could be able to upgrade Cameron King into Smith for the following week. Unfortunately, that's not how it worked out. In other news, Angus Crichton, 62. On Crichton, he actually said that his injury, the moon boot injury that he's been having, is actually the best it's been all season. So hopefully he's going to be back scoring those bigger scores, maybe even in the 70s if he can just push on a little bit. But that's not to say his scores recently haven't been abysmal. Look at it, 62, 86, 67, 54. You can't take anything away from him. Paul Gallen, Sammy Burgess, Jack DeBellin, Jason Tomalolo didn't have a big game. In fact, he didn't play the minutes, I thought. Remembering the game, he played 61 minutes but didn't get the bigger outburst of the score. It's a little bit disappointing considering at the start of the year he was playing 78 to 80 minutes in some of the games and then quickly slipped behind and everyone was like, well, I don't expect him to go big. Cameron Munster's out injured, Nathan Cleary's 58, Connor Watson got me the 48 points. My centers completely screwed me over because Tommy Travojevic, who's usually my highest scorer, ended up getting my lowest score with Cody Walker. And had I played Tyrell instead, I would have been in the green bags. But Jared Haynes moving to fullback this week, so I might even consider him in my team. Now, one thing I want to do before we move on to our Q&A session, if you have any questions, guys, be sure to ask them in the next 2 to 3 minutes, because I'll get through all the questions. But I'm having a look at the front teams, particularly Chris Delaney's team. And I'm considering trying to get in touch with Chris, I should say Christian Delaney, that's his full name, and seeing if he'll do like a live interview with me on one of my next upcoming fantasy videos, if he can talk us through the season that he's just had. I'm not sure if you guys would like that. If you can let me know in the comment section down below if that's something that you'd be willing to watch or looking forward to watching, hearing from the guy who's actually a front runner and seeing if he could potentially maintain that spot at first, because it is a tight rank at the moment. It is a very tight rank. Thank you, Nathalia A, for subscribing just then, man. Really, really appreciate it. But at the moment, the Dream Team 70777 looks good to go. He's only up by 16 points, but he has a dream team at the moment. Cameron McInnes, Cameron Smith, Martin Tapau, Nathan Brown, Tomalolo, Crichton, DeBellin, Gallen. He doesn't have much beyond that. I mean, he's got Kafusi and Corey in case anyone gets injured, but he did play 3 halves, which is a bit surprising considering the depth I thought he may have had. He's playing Shoni Matalia over Jared Hayne, fair enough, and he's also playing another back. So the biggest criticism I have for his team is that I'd prefer to stack my second row with another reserve rather than having to play like a Cody Walker and then playing Tedesco in that position and not having to reserve Cody Walker. But that's what he's doing in his team at the moment. Isn't it funny that once you get to the end of the season, so many more of the teams are actually having to sit there and so many of the teams are starting to look like the same because everyone's gunning for the same 17 players except for a couple of different mismatches here or there. But pretty much, you look at this second row, it's all the same between me to him. The front row, Martin Tapau, Nathan Brown, and even the hookers that he has is the hookers that I want. So there you go. But I think he might be able to hold his position. If we look to his closest person, it's going to be McInnes, Smith. He's got Fafita, Tapau, and Nathan Brown, Gallen, Mannering, Crichton, Burgess, Tomalolo. Cleary and unfortunately Cherry Evans only scoring 27, not that great of a score. But he's got Mataudia and also Scott. Lewis Brown's there. He may be in a little bit of a trouble, but he should be able to substitute Cody Walker in for Munster next week. So we might try to get in touch with some of these guys. I don't know how I can possibly do it. I might try to reach out to them via Facebook. So let's have a quick look at the questions that we've got so far. Do I think Parramatta, this comes from Skilled Legend 24. Do I think Parramatta can make the top 4? Definitely. Let's actually pull up the ladder at the moment because I'd be assuming a little bit, but there was actually an updated prediction ladder on the Reddit page. If I can just find that, NRL ladder. I think the Parramatta, Rue Sims was actually on the NRL.com today saying she reckons Parramatta can come second. They'll win all their games going home and end up coming second. I don't know anything about that. I think that's a bit optimistic. The weirdest thing about the Parramatta Eels, right? Everyone wasn't a big fan of them, right? And all of a sudden, they get in a position where they're bound to make finals, and they play well after the Gutherson gets injured, and everyone's starting to jump back on the bandwagon. I actually think the Parramatta Eels are one of the biggest bandwagon teams. Like, they'll have a pretty good audience for their matches because it's the heart of the West. It's right in the middle for a lot of the fans to kind of come and kind of watch the games at either ANZ or Paris Stadium when it's back. But what you'll find is, if we make the finals, all of a sudden, all these droves of Parramatta fans that you've never heard of or didn't think were Parramatta Eels fans or had never ever devoted themselves to going for the Eels whenever watching it and you were in the same room as them, all of a sudden, the drums will come out. I'm telling you, I remember 2009 when we made the finals, people were walking up and down the street, and there was at one point on Church Street where it was completely blocked off by people. A car had come down that had like a Bulldogs flag. People had stopped it and started rocking it back and forth. It was absolutely insane. Like, the atmosphere was euphoric. Like, being in Parramatta during that period was amazing. But here's the thing. I just seem to think that we're one of those teams that everyone just jumps on, but jumps as quickly off when we're not looking that great. Let's have another look at... So where do I think we're going to come? Look, I think we're in a good position to topple both the Broncos. I think we can beat the Broncos again in a couple of weeks. Andrew McCullough doesn't look like he's going to be coming back for the rest of the season. He's a key man in their middle defense. They were talking about bringing in Benji Marshall, but he's like... He tackles with soap in his hands. They all slip through him. And being a slippery eel, they'll quickly walk through him just as fast. But I think Cody Nick might be the man that are actually going to play at 9. We'll have to see and wait for the game time to kick off, because Wayne Bennett loves to play those little games as much as Bellamy. We also have the Cowboys. I think Cowboys are bound to slip. I think Parramatta could probably come in the top 4, definitely. I think they might even clinch just 4th. I think the Sharks, Roosters and Storm will be too good, and the fact that Parramatta has a bad for and against means that not only if they were to come 3rd, they'd have to get the same, they'd have to catch up on the Sharks, but also go in front of them for points. They'd have to get one additional win because they're that far behind. They've got -4. They're the only team in the top 8 to have a -4 and against. That's so bad. And I actually think the Panthers will make the top 8. I think the Seagulls might slip out. The Seagulls' form lately has been... I don't know what they're doing. Something's happened in that team. Whenever Darcy Lussick ends up playing for them, they go absolutely broke. Something happens in that team. They scored more points when Darcy Lussick was substituted and thrown to the sin bin than when Darcy Lussick was on the field. They scored more points with 12 people. That's ridiculous. So I'll read some of these comments. Luke Heikkinen says, I would be keen on the interviews. Look, I'll try to get in touch with the guys and see what we can do in regards to that. Nathalia A says, do I have Valentine Holmes? I did have Valentine Holmes about round 6, but I actually sold him. If you have a look at my team, where are we at the moment? I sold him for Dylan Edwards. I went backwards. I bought Dylan Edwards in about round 15, 16, because at the end of the day, Valentine Holmes is going to be playing State of Origin. I was like, that's not going to be any good for me, so I'll just quickly give him the flick. So Dylan Edwards was the guy I bought, and I'm glad I did because he's been playing great. He's been doing a really good job for us. I think in the first round we picked him up. Yeah, he got 54, 66, 36. He's been averaging about the same score that Hayne would be scoring about now as well, but I'm happy with that. I'm happy for him to continue the way that he's doing at the moment. So, there's another thing I also want to talk about. Brycey Cartwright's actually back on the bench for the Penrith Panthers. He is so cheap. He is dirt cheap. I wouldn't buy him. He's $262,000. He's one player in particular next season who I think a lot of people are going to be jumping on if he's back in the starting 13. If he starts in the second row again, if he's not injured, of course, if he does overcome all of his injuries, he's going to be the guy that I think everyone's going to buy. Kind of like the Angus Crichton of this season. Like, you had to have bought Angus Crichton in order to be competitive this season. Really. Like, the amount of score and outputs, he's the only player at the moment over $600,000. Only player at the moment was $600,000. Alright, what have we got? Chris W says, do I trade Harinara for DeBellin or Surges for Tomalolo or Mannering? If Sam Burgess plays, don't trade him, because he is a first-grade fantasy player. Not only a football player, first-grade football player, but he's good. He's been having a weird season. He's been having a weird back end. Like, ever since the buys, he's just been going backwards and backwards. But when he went down against the Raiders, he was on 41 points. He was nearly on 1 point per minute. which means if he plays his usual 80 minutes, he should be getting around that 60 plus scores that we're used to seeing. I would definitely hold on to Sam Burgess. I wouldn't be getting rid of him just yet. In saying that, if your options are, and you're like, no, I want to trade out Sam Burgess, I actually like Burgess for Jack DeBellin, but I also can see why you'd want to do Mannering. I don't think Tomalola is getting the minutes he was at the start of the season to justify grabbing him over the other two. In saying that, Tomalola is definitely a hold. As for Corey, now the odd thing about Corey is he was one of those guys at the start of the season you needed to have because he was scoring outrageous scores, nearly 1 point a minute. Look at that, the first 3 rounds, nearly 1 point a minute on the average. Amazing. And then he ends up playing 80 minutes a game and ends up scoring less. It's like fatigue finally kicks in. And what I've noticed about him more than anything is that his missed tackles seems to go up. So when it comes to the end of those games for him, he ends up slipping a little bit and he's missing more and more tackles. So he's losing more and more points. I think he's a trade because he's not a genuine fantasy gun. I think his prime time is when he's only playing 50 to 60 minutes. And that's when he's making a bit of an impact play or doing something a little bit different or taking on the line. That extra 20 to 30 minutes seems to really zap him. So if you can trade out Corey for Jack DeBellin, I'd totally do it. I'd totally do it. NZ for Life 21 says, how did you go in the Warp Speed League this week? I actually don't know. I have to look that up. I'd have to go to the NRL Fantasy Lounge. If someone can do that for me in the meantime, because I don't want to go too off topic. Just so you know, the Warp Speed League is like an eliminator league for the last 6 rounds that the NRL Fantasy Lounge does in their Facebook group. I'm not sure. I presume I would have won with a score of 924. We'll have to come back and check that out. Dreamer says he's got 4 trades left, needs Crichton, but has to downgrade an MPR to afford him. Do I trade Surges this week? And where are we? And leave 2 trades for the run home. I mean, I've only got 2 trades for the run home, and I've got my 17. 2 trades is pretty handy to have if you've got a reserve that you can get in the end. Because at the end of the day, I lost Cameron Munster, but I could have easily have played Cody Walker or Cameron King in his place, and I'm going to end up playing Cameron King. So the thing for me in all this is that it really depends on your team. If you've got an extra bench player that you can rely on, totally do it. I wouldn't be downgrading Crichton at all. But if you need Crichton, I'd definitely be trying to jump on Crichton. He's just scoring that well. Unfortunately, knowing your luck, Dreamers, is the moment you bring in Crichton, he's going to end up scoring abysmal. But the good news is he actually reported today, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, he's scoring better now than he has previously. So I mean, his injury's better now than it has been previously, as said by his own words. That was him coming out of it, and he wasn't in a moon boot for a change. JTK says they'll move Hunt to 9 and put Cody at 7. I don't know. I don't think Ben Hunt is a 9. I don't think Hunt or Benji Marshall are 9s. The Northerner says, don't you dare talk about the overperforming Cowboys. I think you're in a bit of strife about Thurston. It's a bit of a one-man band, and that's nothing to be ashamed about. Who cares how you win? It's if you're winning. And if it's like one player, if it's like LeBron James playing for the Miami Heat, then so be it. JTK says, Eels will finish in the top 4. They'll definitely win at least 4 of their 5 bearing injuries. Yeah, agree. Troy Hotel says, should I trade out Munster? I have DCE, Feeney, and Field, so I have no backup, and I could go for an AE. Troy Hotel, this is how it works. If you have limited players that are going to be playing, like if you have as many red dots I have, and your auto emergency is going to be someone like a Cody Walker or a Jared Hayne, or someone who's going to be scoring 30 or 40s, I'd probably hold off wasting a trade. It also depends upon how many trades you have. If you've got 4 or 5 trades, burn that trade for Munster, because we've only got round 22, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We've got 5 rounds to go. If you're not scoring the maximum amount of points in a round, like for example, if you have Munster who's scoring 55, but then you're going to get someone like Cody Walker who scores 21, you're effectively missing out on 35 fantasy points for 1 round that you should have got. So if you've only got 1 trade left, hold off, wait for the injury report to kind of come back and see how long he's actually going to be out for. And again, due diligence, because the media for the Storms don't really give a good predicament for how long a player is actually out for, as seen with Billy Slater and Cameron Smith. Who else do we have? What other questions do we have? Unfortunately, you might have to take the AE this week if you're stuck. That's going to be a bit of a shocker, especially if you've got... Well, the good news is that Feeney and Field won't score, so you won't be getting them as auto emergencies. Skill Legend 24 says Lussick to Manly, great move by Para. Agree, but I also seem to think that Lussick to Parramatta was the only change or exchange or sellout Parramatta's done to Manly that hasn't worked in their favour. Usually when Parramatta sells a player to Manly, they go God mode. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Darcy Lussick wasn't that bad for Parramatta. Do you remember that time? No, that was actually Mitchell Allgood who actually punched Tim Maddai in the face. But that's another story. Maybe we'll play that video at the end of the video. Let me know if you want me to play the Mitch Allgood punching Steve Maddai in the face at the end of this video. Let me know. Pierce Miller says, Aussie in the bunker. Of course, mate, I've officially signed up with the NRL. Jokes, I'm actually not signing up with the NRL. I've just got my green screen working. It's all going well. Mr. Costa2233 says, what to do with Munster? Just wait for the reports to come out and how long the injury is going to be. That's all I can say. We kind of covered that with the last question that came out. Should I trade to Cordner? If you're looking for a pod, when he does come back, yes. But because Cordner's actually not playing now, no. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can do that anyway. Is Tim Laffey a must-have pod? No way. 3 seasons ago, I would have said definitely. Now, like the last 2 seasons of the Bulldogs and this season, no way. He's had a couple of good games, but all in all, he seems to be up and down. Look at these scores. That's the thing with centers. Centers, at the end of the day, is a lottery. It's literally a lottery. Look at it. 38, 20, 34. He's playing the same amount of minutes, playing with the same structure in the halves, with the same guy outside him. It's not going to change. He had 2 to 3 good games in the last couple of games. Owned by 2%. A pod is not worth anything if he's not going to be scoring as much as the guy you're trading him out for. Like, if I'm looking at this team and I'm like, okay, I'm going to trade out BJ Leilua. He's owned by 12%. And I'm going to be going to Timmy Laffey, who's actually got less people. If they're scoring the same, there's no advantage of a pod versus a non-pod. That's not how it works. A pod is only worth having a pod if they're going to be scoring exceptionally well. And talking about lottos and centers, even Curtis Scott, 54, 60, 83, then 16. That's just the centers. They're going to have quiet games. There's going to be times when the ball doesn't go out to their side. There's going to be times when there's going to be a lot of penalties and they're going to be... the opposition's going to have a lot of penalties, so they're not going to be spreading the ball and just coughing it up the middle every time, and they're not going to get the ball that much. It happens. That's the thing about centers. At the start of the year, you want to trade with the cheapest centers you can possibly find. The biggest pod for the centers this year has been Dane Gagai. Highest scoring center to date. Look at his scores. 34, 32, 53, 84, 35. The reality is, he's the highest scorer. The season before that was like Conrad Hurrell. The thing for me in all this is that you can't really predict centers, and that's why I try to pull my second rows in there like Shoni Mataudio, who I'm like, he should get 30 to 40, but sometimes, like Chris Lawrence was last season, they're not going to be scoring the scores that you want them to. So it's a bit of a shame, but let's have a look. Luke Heikkinen says, thoughts on me trading Latelli to Duffy using Hayne and then Cam King to McInnes? You know what? Give Cameron King 1 more week, because I feel like Cameron King and McInnes play exactly the same way. The only thing is that Cameron King, moving forward, is going to be playing 80 minutes in the hooker spot. He did that last week, scored 38. The week prior, he had Will Smith come in. You can see the minutes here. If you have a look at the minutes, he scored 38. Before that, 24, 37, 33. If he actually scores 33 in 59 minutes, he's got the potential to go 40 odd. I'd wait. If you've got the money to make that trade to Cameron King to Cameron McInnes now, do it. Because the 2 highest scoring hookers that are available are Cameron King and McInnes. That's the 2 you want. That's your final 17. But the good news is, if you're short on cash, give it 1 more week. Because Cameron King break even of 6 versus McInnes' break even of 52. Cameron McInnes isn't going to go anywhere in terms of cost. Cameron King, on the other hand, is going to go up by another 20 to 30 grand. Really depends on, again, on your trades. That's the most difficult thing about trading at the end of the season versus trading at the start of the season. Giving advice at the start of a season, like new pods or new cash cows or new people coming into the team after an injury, is easy advice to give you, but now it really depends upon how many trades you have. You want to make sure that your 2 trades, if you've only got 2 trades like me left, are 2 trades going in to ensure that you've got a final 17 that you're happy with, and potentially having 1 or 2 trades up your sleeve for injuries. It's getting to that point that if you've still got trades by round 25, 26, it's wasted trades. You should have gotten your 17 by now, or at least the next round. So I think you should do those trades. On the other hand, Latelli to Duffy. Look, Latelli's not a genuine fantasy scorer. Duffy, again, is not necessarily a genuine scorer either. The only thing going for him is that he's cheap. He is so cheap. And the reality is, his break-even again is -16. He's not going to score 84 each week. And I said this in the last video. Great debut, amazing. I've been waiting 2 seasons to finally see Matt Duffy play a game, and I'm glad he finally did. I think the fact that Dugan was moving out to the Sharks next season played their hand early, and that way they're trying to bleed Duffy into the team, which is a shame because it would have been an amazing player cash cow for next season, or a rookie price cash cow for next season to start with. But here's the thing. Duffy is the go-to guy. Like, at the moment, if you're looking at a cheap fullback at the moment, grab Duffy. Grab him now, because it's the cheapest he's going to be. If you're strapped for cash, there are potentially better options. I mean, James Tedesco is the other guy who you want. He's the other gun. He is the gun fullback at the moment. There's no one else that kind of compares, really. I mean, look at these other guys. Tommy Travojevic only scored 21 again this week. He can go up and down. Travojevic and Tedesco are the 2 guys you want. So look at this next question. NZ for Life said, yep, you won your warp speed game. The guy you were facing only scored 884. That means I go through the next week in the Eliminator. What to do with Bo? William Morse says, what to do with Bodine Thompson? What to do with Bodine Thompson? He was one that came off... Look, the thing with Bodine Thompson is he came off an injury at the start of the season, and that's why they weren't playing him with the minutes that he usually plays. Look at the first 3 games, especially the first game. He scored 25 points from 37 minutes. He is a genuine fantasy gun. Again, wait for the injury update. I'm actually not sure how long Bodine Thompson's on. The best way to always look at the injuries is always click on the view casualty ward. That's what I always find. Because sometimes the best way or most genuine way to find news is on here. Otherwise, it's going to be through your fantasy groups like your Renegades, your NRL Fantasy Lounge, or Twitter, or one of those guys like MK Merchants or whoever it is actually post the data. But if you're on any of those groups or on Reddit, the subreddit for the NRL, the subreddit NRL URL, the updates on people's injuries are usually there. And that's the hardest thing, is that at the moment, unless you're particularly following someone, you don't know how long their injury is. But Bodine Thompson, PEC indefinite, that's not good news. So I just give it a day or 2 before the Thursday kickoff, and if he's not right to go or there's no news, I would definitely trade him out, because again, you want to make sure that you've got 17 genuine fantasy scorers scoring for this back end. Nothing else matters. Nothing else really matters. So I'd be getting rid of him at this moment. Give it 2 days. Let the update come through. Let's have a look. Do you play... Chris W says, do you play the Thursday match day games? I don't. I don't care about it. What... When this is what we talked about last week in Supercoach versus NRL Fantasy. One of the worst things that NRL Fantasy did was introduce Thursday matchday games. And in case anyone's like, what am I talking about? Let's see if it's here. I can't even remember what it is. Here it is, matchday. It's a separate team that you run on the side, and that you choose, I believe it's the 6 players. It's just like the format for State of Origin. So you go down here, and you pick players. You pick your Tom Malolo, you pick your half, whoever the hookers are. I mean, you've only got 2 choices here. You got Cody Nikamura. Nikarima, I should say. Sorry, my apologies. You got da-da-da. And the good thing is, there's no skill to this. There's no salary cap. And the fact is, if 100,000 fantasy coaches was playing Thursday match day, there's only so many different combinations that you could have in the 6, and that you'd find so many people would score the same as you. There's no skill in this. I can't devote myself to additional time to do this because it's a joke. And to do this week on week, NRL Fantasy, Fan Hub, whoever it is watching out there right now, if you're actually watching out here, I said this last week, one of the most wasted resources is putting money into this garbage fantasy match day. It's complete and utter bullshit. Put the money back for weekly winners, people who score the most in a singular week. Cut this crap out with picking 6 players for that particular game across 2 teams. That's it. It's not even for the weekend, it's just for that. All it's trying to do is that you, as a fantasy coach, would launch the app, like many of us do, and on game day, watch those 6 players score. No one cares. No one cares. It's classic mode. When you're playing classic, you watch every game if one of your players is in it. And that's the... I'm telling you right now, the NRL, by the amount of money they put into the sponsorship for this, is ridiculous. There's not enough money devoted to the winners of this league. The NRL Fantasy draws a lot more fans, a lot more addicted fans that watch every game each week and buys Foxtel and goes to the pub and watches the game and gives you guys ratings because of the NRL Fantasy app. That's it. There's nothing else to it. NRL Fantasy is the be-all and end-all. Like, stop trying to divert garbage across 2 different means at the moment. I'm just going to close down my Steam. I'm getting messages left, right, and center. Stop trying to divert people to different areas to try to bridge out and get more coaches to join. All this is going to do is that if I want to win the $500 for the week, or how much money it is, let's have a look. I actually wrote it down in the app, in the Excel I created. This is actually getting me really angry. Look at this. I'm getting pumped weekly. Apparently, you don't get any money for it. The only thing you get money for in NRL Fantasy for match day is Origin, Test Day, and Finals match day. Why? Why would you do it? I can't... Get rid of it. It's garbage. Maybe for State of Origin, Test Match, Origin, leave it. Otherwise, it's garbage. Put resources back into where it should be focused. No one plays that crap. At all. At all. Put money... Look at that. $15,000. We spoke about that last week. If you want to have a look at my breakdown of how the prizes and the sponsorships and the amount of money we can win as NRL fantasy coaches, go and check last week's video. It's all in there. It's all there. We spoke about it. We spoke about the format comparisons. We spoke about the point scoring between Supercoach and NRL fantasy. Let's not go there again. Let's not get too off topic. I don't do match days. It's garbage. Even on Origin days, I can't be bothered to pick my 6 players. Or I might, last minute. I might be like, oh, as a joke, I'll pick 6 players. It's the worst thing that they brought in. They shouldn't be diverting resources to crap like that. But they do it anyway. That's my 2 cents. Let me have a look. What else do we have? What else do we have? What is your Snapchat? My Snapchat is SpotTheOzzie. Exactly. I've actually got a couple of Snapchats from the boys. Thanks so much for Snapchatting. Snapchat is SpotTheOzzie. My Twitter is SpotTheOzzie. My Facebook page is SpotTheOzzie. I don't have an Instagram, but if I did, it would be SpotTheOzzie. Exactly as it's spelled down below. But if you want to make sure that you also always get my videos, is simply subscribe down below. Hit that subscribe button. An alert will come up above me saying such and such has just subscribed, yada yada yada, etc. etc. And I'm really trying to pump my channel. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subs at the moment. And also give that thumbs up button down below a like if you're enjoying the video series as well. It really supports my channel more than you can imagine. But I always send out a Snapchat like 5 minutes before I always do my cast. But if you hit that subscribe button, you'll get an SMS or like a notification or whatever level of notification you have set up in YouTube, you'll receive. But generally, I do these videos every Tuesday night, live, as of about 2 weeks ago from streaming. But all my older videos were released on Wednesday nights because they weren't live. But anyway, next questions. Troy Hotel says Roberts is going alright, damn straight. I think he's the man at the moment. Apparently, he's got a drug problem, as released by Wayne Bennett. Otherwise, he would have been playing for the Blues. He's probably the best centre for New South Wales the last 4 years, but yeah. I think one of the best things he could have done was going from the Titans out of that environment and going to the Broncos under Wayne Bennett as a mentor. The Dreamer says, read Marty's message, do that later. Bethany Bloomfield says, Oi Sport, what do you think of the lane train? The lane train has gone lame recently for 2 reasons. First of all, Darcy Lussick ended up starting last week. I don't know why, but that meant Sean Lane went from starting at 12 and kicked off to the side of the game. I don't know why. I really don't know why. If you've got a guy... I can't even describe how frustrating it is. I think there are some fantasy coaches out there that could coach better than some of the coaches out there. Seriously. If I ever come in the top 10 overall for a year, I'm going to be applying for the New South Wales Blues team. But Sean Lane, terrible. Terrible. He's derailed himself purely because of the fact that the team's getting traded out last minute. But is he back in this week's team list? That's the big question that I'm sure that you want to ask. If you've already jumped on him, you've got to write him out. You've got to write out Sean Lane. That sounds so wrong, but you've got to write him out. His break-even's 33. His starting position, I want to see if they actually corrected this. He's starting 12 again. But just wait last minute to see if Sean Lane gets picked again and Darcy Lussick gets started to the moving team. I don't know why. I genuinely don't know why they've played with that. Am I on board? I'm not on board myself, but I think it was a good punt to jump on, given the fact that he looked like he was going to be playing 80 minutes after round 18 and doing an exceptionally great job for the man he replaced in Curtis Sirenen. But you know what? He was even playing better than Curtis Sirenen. And I was a Curtis Sirenen fanboy at the start of the season by buying him my fantasy team. I don't know. I think that's a bit of a shame. So, how many trades do I have left? Some V Steezy. I got 2. Okay, Troy Talon says, I got 3 trades. Should I trade RDS to Teddy and maybe Munster if you use out more mate, trade Munster to Teddy if Munster is confirmed out. When do you have? You've got Friday night to decide if you're going to trade Munster to Teddy. The good news is that the Tigers don't play till Sunday, so you'll know on the Friday if Munster's going to be good to go. Make a call then. Do it then. DJ Crazy says he personally has 7 trades. That's a lot of trades up your sleeve. That is absolutely amazing. Steezy says, V Steezy, how are ya? Is it alright if I use my 2 trades to trade out Wallace for Paulo, then use the money from... Whoops, accidentally press send. Okay. Luke Heikkinen says, will the Dragons' form slump affect their fantasy scores? Nah. Mate, they lost this week to Newcastle. Vaughan scored 78. DeBellin 73. 59. Form slumps aren't dependent upon individual fantasy scores. Form slumps is usually their back-end players not doing that great, and they're never going to be consistent anyway, so I wouldn't really worry about that. Individual players can play the house down. Do you remember Jared Hayne back in 2012 for the Parramatta Eels? They lost like every game. It was when Chris Sandow was playing. But then Hayne was scoring like 80, 90, 70. It was absolutely unbelievable. If you weren't on the Hayne train, you were sucking up punches. So don't worry about form slumps for teams. JK says, cut the match day off. This bloke's going to come down to the NRL HQ and beat someone's ass. Damn straight. Dreamer says, NRL Live Pass 12 months is the prize for Thursday match day. Garbage. Complete garbage. NRL Live Pass is free if you're with Telstra. They're evaluating it at $90. It's free. Steezy says, up the matter. Bethany's going to go settle a match days. Good luck with that. Make me the Dragons coach, please. She says also, I could coach them better than Mary does. Damn straight. I think anyone could. Steezy says, should I catch... I think we're getting to the end of the questionnaires from everyone. This has been a pretty good Q&A at the end. I think we should do this more often. Steezy says, should I captain Vaughan, Crichton, or Tomolo? I only captained Vaughan because he was going to be up against Newcastle this week. Who am I going to captain? Probably Crichton. Probably Crichton. If the St. George Dragons are starting to slip defensively and Crichton has a chance to get over the line, zing. Again, if you have Cameron Smith, pick Cameron Smith. I mean, that's it. I mean, seriously, pick Cameron Smith. What else we got? Gladesway X. Thanks, tuning in, Gladesway X. Should I trade Munster to Cody and Brayley to Smith? Dude, you should have traded Brayley to Smith like a year ago. Cody to Munster. Just wait to see what Munster's injury's like. You don't even know if Cody's going to be playing at 9, 6 or 7 yet. All we know is that Cody's going to be starting in the team. I had Cody at the middle part of the year. He was a great asset for my team. The problem is you don't know what position he's going to be playing at the moment. If he's going to hooker, be very, very scared that he won't play 80 minutes because the Broncos usually play a guy called Travis Vidal off the bench if they do. They don't seem to have him this week. They have Benji Marshall. I did hear that Benji Marshall would be going in as hooker because there's no way he's going to replace a half. I wouldn't touch it. Wait until after this week to understand what their format's going to be, and that way that you'll know. If you can avoid the Munster trade for a week, do it. If not, wait for late mail to see what Munster's injury update is. Bethany Bloomfield says, apparently Drew Hutchison is back round 23. I think he's irrelevant. He's irrelevant for fantasy anyway, like... He hasn't played at all this year anyway. What are you trying to do? Get me into a joke? Get me into saying something I don't want to say? Jesus. DJ Crazy said, a kid on my school today took a shit in the teacher's desk. Alright, great stuff. I'm glad to see that you're at, I don't know what school that is, but let's leave it at that. Luke Heikkinen says he's got 9 trades left. Dude, if you've got 9 trades left, what the hell are you doing? How many games are there left? There's 5 games left. You've got a maximum of 10 trades to make, so you have to make 2 this round. You could make 1 next round and then make 2 for the next round and still have enough trades to the end. I don't know what the hell you're doing. Anyway, guys, we might wrap up this fantasy episode with me signing off from that mark. This has been Spot the Aussie, the NRL Fantasy Fanatic coming at you. After this stream, in about 20 to 30 minutes, I am going to be streaming PUBG straight off the bat because I know how much you guys love PUBG. But I've really appreciated it. Thanks for sending in all your questions, your comments, your thumbs ups. If you haven't subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button just down below. I think it's just over that way. And I'd really appreciate all the support all over again, guys. And I'll talk to you very shortly.